What's going on, guys? This is Foresight Capital, and today I wanted to give a quick weekend update on Palantir Technologies. The market is closed tomorrow, and it closed at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, so we now have a full week's worth of price action for Palantir, and it was a pretty big week overall. So we're going to talk about the setup that we have now and where it could potentially trade over the next week. All that I ask is if this video brings you value, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing because we just passed 10,000 subscribers, and it really helps this channel reach more people. So go ahead and zoom in here to this week's price action, and as we can see, on Monday morning we had a sell-off in pre-market hours that fell all the way back to the $24.60 per share range that we've been talking about as support for some time on this channel. In fact, if we zoom out, we can see that it was used as resistance as recently as the beginning of December and all the way back to the end of November. And we fell back and used $24.60 as support for this stock before ultimately bouncing back pre-market and then spiking well over 9%, almost 10% on news that Palantir has re-upped a contract with the U.S. Army. Or I should say that the U.S. Army has elected to re-up a contract with Palantir. Now, this contract had a $400+ million valuation for Palantir, but it was a 4-year contract, with the first year being guaranteed at about $110 million, and the Army having the option to pick up this contract for subsequent years, which it elected to do. This contract was signed in December 2019 and was re-upped in 2020 for yet another year at a valuation of about $114 million for next year's revenue for Palantir. We then saw a pretty big sell-off in opening hours of Tuesday, and we fell back below the $27.70 per share range that we've been mentioning as support. However, we were supported by the 200 period moving average and quickly bounced back to continue using $27.70 as support for the rest of the trading day, and then opening up the next day up yet another 3%, actually increasing above the 61.8% retracement line and trading there for most of the trading day. Now, this was on news that Palantir had inked a deal with the UK government to help with vaccine distribution for the current virus situation and using big data to help with the distribution of vaccines. So that ultimately was a positive catalyst that again kept the price inflated for Palantir before we saw a bit of a pullback today. And if we look at where we landed, it was at $27.75 per share, right at the $27.70 per share support level that I've been talking about for quite some time. This is going to be key to hold, and it's very promising that it's held this for most of the week. As we see, once we had the bit of a sell-off back to $24.60, which I had mentioned we were likely to touch before breaking the $27.70 barrier, we almost immediately rose and broke above the $27.70 barrier and have continued using that as support for the remainder of the week. That's a very promising setup because it's given the 200 period moving average time to continue creeping up to act as a secondary level of support just below in case we do break below $27.70. And it gives us a very strong baseline to make a run back towards not only the $30+ per share range, but potentially all-time highs. Now, I know there's still a lot of concern out there about the lockup period, and yes, we do have to worry about that. 80% of the total float of Palantir is due to hit the market sometime in the middle of February. They're expected to announce earnings on February 11th, I believe, which would have the shares hitting the market somewhere around the 15th or 16th of February. And in that amount of time, we could see a pretty substantial run-up and thus a decline in price. So here's my thoughts for the setup for where we are going to continue to trade next week. The biggest thing is on Monday, we want to see an open and continuous hold above $27.70. If we continue to build the baseline in this area, I think we can realistically see a push back up to the $31 per share range. 30 is technically a psychological barrier, but hasn't shown to be much resistance previously in previous breakouts. So I think the biggest level that we're going to see is this 78.6% retracement level on the Fibonacci retracement that we've gotten drawn here on the screen, which we can see acted as resistance and ultimately caused the stock to trend down to trade roughly sideways over the past 2 weeks or so. So now that we're building a base at 27.70, I think the next level of buying action pushes us at least to the $30 per share range, to $31 per share. And that's going to give us some running room of about $3 per share, which is a bit over 10% from current price levels. That could happen next week or over a 2-week period. There may or may not be a ton of volume in the week between Christmas and New Year's, so we'll have to watch the volume, because if the stock is rising on very low volume, that's not necessarily a great sign. But the biggest level that we want to hold is this 27.70. If we see it continue to hold that and break up to $31 per share, what we'd realistically like to see is a break above 31 and then move the support level up to 31, where any period of consolidation after that sits right along the $31 per share level. And that gives us an opportunity to make a run for $33 per share. That's exactly what we want to see with this stock, because keep in mind, Palantir is a stock that there isn't a whole lot of information available on as far as their products, as far as their past revenues, because even though they've been around for 17 years, we've only had a really deep look for 1 quarter for this company, and it was pretty much to be expected what was announced. So we're really basing a lot of the price action off of technicals, if you believe in technicals at all, which a lot of you don't, and that's absolutely fine. But just looking at how the price has obeyed these price targets of about 27.70 and 24.60, we can see that it at least has some sort of semblance of pricing levels that are key for this stock. And I think if we see the continuation up to $31 per share and start building a baseline with any sort of news catalyst, we can see a continued climb up to 33.50 all-time highs and potentially breaking through there. I think that's going to be a very strong resistance level. In fact, if we look at where it hit 33.50 all-time highs, realistically, it wasn't a bunch of candles that consolidated around 33.50. It was one very strong hourly candle push and then an almost immediate sell-off. Now, when we hit these levels, that was also when Citron Research came out with a short target of about $20 per share for Palantir, which we have yet to see. I think we're going to continue to see a consolidation and slow staircase step up for Palantir. We've seen a lot of that in its price action. We see an increase in price, consolidation, increase in price, consolidation, decrease. And that's very common with stocks that aren't super long in the public market, where there isn't a whole lot of data to go back and look at. There's just going to be a lot of trends, and that's what we're seeing here. We saw stair step down, consolidation, stair step down, consolidation, stair step down, and now we're seeing the reversal of that. Stair step up, consolidation. Ideally, we see stair step up and continuation of this trend to push back towards all-time highs. We've got some catalysts behind us with new contracts being signed. We've got some revenue increases for next year. And while analysts are still looking very poorly on the stock, it seems like retail traders are coming in and supporting the stock at some of these key levels and allowing the price to be pushed higher when institutional buyers or larger buyers come in for the stock. So I realized that this was a lot of technicals. Feel free to watch the video more than once, of course. If you're interested, leave a comment down below. Are we going to see a push towards $31 per share next week, or are we going to see a break back below $27.70 and some continued downtrend, maybe back towards the $26 per share level? Curious to see your thoughts. I really appreciate you watching till the end, and I hope you all have a great holiday season. I'm sure I will be making a video over the weekend, or at least by Monday, for a follow-up on Palantir or any other stocks. Thanks for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, and catch you in the next one.